Welcome to another lovely, special evening episode of Unleashing the Future of Work. And today I have a wonderful guest joining me. And you all may have heard of him. Sylvain Kalechi is the co-founder of Hulbert School, a tireless entrepreneur and former software engineer who has worked in the tech industry for more than a decade and has committed his life to building communities and products that scale. He currently leads a team at Hobart School, a 2-year program training highly skilled full stack software engineers. Inspired by his progressive education and progressive education in general, Hobart School has a curriculum based model in which it encourages peer learning and project based learning approaches. What regular schools call teaching, they call it collaboration. Today, Sylvain and I will be talking about this interesting overlap between the future of education and work, the continued rise of e-learning due to COVID-19, and most importantly, his entrepreneurial journey and some of his awesome thoughts on the future of education. So without further ado, let's welcome Sylvain. What's up, man?
Hey, hi Tim.
How are you doing?
I'm good. We are just across the bridge. Yet we cannot meet in person, right?
Sadly. So before we go in, I want to show love to our amazing audience who's viewing from all over the world. Shout out to Xavier, who is joining us this lovely afternoon. If you're tuning and watching from wherever you're at, show some love in the comments and we'll show you some love back. But Sylvain, I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, man. How did you get into doing the work that you now do with Hulbert?
So as you mentioned, I used to be a software engineer writing lines of codes. And I was specifically in the field of SRE, site reliability engineering. My job was to make sure that the servers that are powering all the website and the app that you are using are properly working, and that you can watch your video on Instagram and watch your movie on Netflix. Like you have kind of like engineer in the shadows that are managing all the machines serving you this data. That was me. So I started my career in a small startup called SlideShare. For those of you who don't know, it's like YouTube, but for PowerPoint. We were serving more than 1 billion slides per month. So quite a large community that was eventually acquired by LinkedIn.
Wow.
Which is the largest professional social network, where I worked also as a senior software engineer over there for 3 years. And yeah, that's kind of how I started my career, and this experience led me to experience the how hard it is to find qualified talent, and more specifically software engineers. And whether I was working in small companies, SlideShare was like a 30 employee company, or LinkedIn, which was 10,000. The problem was exactly the same. Like we would struggle to get just candidates in the door, and a lot of the people we would interview, and more specifically college grads, we noticed that they would spend half a decade, right, of their life studying. They paid a fortune in tuition or took on huge student debt. They all look like me, white dude with a beard. Well, I just shaved. But mostly white dude, which is not a good representation of the US demographic, right?
That's true.
And on top of this, they were not prepared to take on a job. And so with my friend at the time, Julian Barbier, we were like, wait a second, like the default way to become a software engineer it's very long.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. It only serves a fraction of American people, and it does not really work. And so that's from this that we decided to become entrepreneurs.
Wow. So, how did you kind of latch on to Hobart School? What inspired the idea? What was the moment in which you said, okay, this is the problem we're going to solve, so here's how we're going to solve it?
So really, after years, working in Silicon Valley and experiencing this lack of talent, and then also with my friend Julian, we co-created the largest community of French and French-speaking software engineer, which is called Wild 42. This community grew to 40 cities in the world. And so we were in touch with this really global software engineering community.
Yeah.
And we would hear anywhere, so 40 cities anywhere from Japan to the west coast of the US and everything in between on all continents. And we would hear the same exact thing. We cannot hire people, like it's not possible to find highly qualified talent. And we looked at our education model. And you can look at all the industrial revolution, right? From the one where we harnessed steam and coal power to today, the fourth industrial revolution, right? Where we are building virtual worlds that are influencing and impacting our actual physical world. Everything in between, our education remained the same.
Wow.
Right? We went to the moon. We have like some crazy stuff happening now in our world, right?
Yeah.
And education is still the same. So we're like, well, we think there is something to do here.
Yeah.
And that's when we decided to take the leap.
Yeah. And when you decided to take the leap, were you excited because you felt as though this is my baby, this is a great idea, I'm ready to unleash it into the world? How did you feel? What was that feeling like?
Yeah, definitely a lot of excitement. You need it. When you're an entrepreneur, you need the excitement, you need the energy, you need the grit. You need to love what you are doing because it's very hard.
Yeah.
On so many levels. I think being software engineer, especially in the SRE field, there were like challenging times in terms of pressure and stress, but Hulbert is a whole other level.
Yeah.
And so you really need to have this. You need to be hungry. You need to really love what you are doing. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You are going to burn out. You are not going to last. And it's not only about yourself, but also your team, right? Like inspiring your coworkers, and then inspiring investors, inspiring so many people to believe in your vision and to believe in what you are building. And I'm still very excited, but definitely, like if some of you are considering the entrepreneur path, come with something that you need to be happy to wake up in the morning and be like, yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Now you need the ignition, the excitement. So shout out to Morgan, who's tuning in. Shout out to Daniel. Shout out to John. Shout out to my good brother, Chris, who's going to be on a future episode very, very soon. Also, shout out to Christy, who's tuning in from Houston, and Theodore as well. Blessings to you. Thank y'all so much for tuning into this episode. So Sylvain, let's talk a little bit about the future of education, right? So give me your thoughts on how do you see the future of education merging with the future of work?
So I think the two worlds are progressively merging. Back in the day, the one that could receive an education, a formal education, were the wealthiest and the one who could have the luxury of traveling great distances to listen to monks lecturing them. Perhaps people would memorize books. That was a way to show that you were educated. And as we are moving more and more, education is not a luxury; it's a necessity. Where, as citizens of this world, if we want to pay the rent, if you want to put bread on the table, we need to contribute significantly to the society by factually having a job, right?
Yeah.
And today, having a job like means that you need skills, and the skills are more and more complicated and advanced, if I may say. Like automation, whether it's mechanic with robots or software, is progressively like doing a lot of jobs that would not require much skills. High skills, right? So I see the two worlds merging, and actually 90% of people going to a post-secondary education institution go to college to find a job.
Wow.
And so I think the two worlds are merging, and it's when we used to go to school maybe once in our life.
Mm.
Generation ago, you would learn a skill, or a set of skills, a craft, and make a career out of it. Today, that's not the case anymore. The pace at which our world is changing is accelerating.
Mm.
And so you can learn one craft, but maybe a decade after that, or maybe half a decade, is gone. And
Yeah.
so you need to retrain and retool. So I think that the two worlds are merging, and that we need to become lifelong learners.
Yeah, no, and similar to you, I'm incredibly passionate about education and this opportunity that we have to develop a more continuous education model and across the board, right? Not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector and, working with governments. And I think, for me, a lot of the work that we're doing with the guide and what really what keeps me up and keeps me going as an entrepreneur is this opportunity is we have an opportunity to teach people the skills that matter, right? That encourage them to put food on the table for their sons and their daughters, but also allow them to better manage their careers. And I think what's so fascinating also about Hobart School is that you all are equipping students with the skills that not only help them get their first jobs, but also the mindset to help them get their next job, right? So talk to me and talk to us a little bit about some of the ways you guys have designed the curriculum to be project based as well as interactive.
Yeah, so we took inspiration, and you mentioned this in your intro. We took inspiration from progressive education. That's not something new, actually. That was started at the end of the 19th century by a great thinker who claimed that memorizing knowledge was not the key, actually, to a great education, and that the subordination of students by a teacher was not a great way to develop an individual. But that instead, learners should develop their problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, and creativity, and very importantly, become lifelong learners. So based on this philosophy, we developed our curriculum that is, as you mentioned, as kind of twofold in terms of goals. The first one is that we want to give students, we want them to learn practical skills, hard skills, something that they can use to find a job right now, right?
Yeah.
Like something that can make them employable. And as of today, we, Hulbert, are training people on digital skills, software engineering, coding. But also, as you mentioned, very importantly, we want them to be prepared for a career. And that is more about soft skills. So, it's about communication, collaboration, being able to work as a team, to have empathy, to be able to express an idea by doing public speaking or writing something. And very importantly, as you mentioned, to be able to learn by yourself. And the key, and why this is very important in our time, is that if you look, at the past, access to knowledge was the main issue to get an education, right? Like you had, as I mentioned, to go to these monasteries or these places where you had masters, monks who had the knowledge, right? Maybe if you were lucky, you could learn how to read, and you could access the few books that were available.
Yeah.
Since then, right, our world has changed. We have the internet, and there is so much knowledge, too much knowledge, actually. And so the access
too much. True.
Yeah, it's too much.
So much we don't have time.
We don't have time. And it's hard to know what's right, what's incorrect, what's true. I think today, like with the COVID-19 situation, like people receive, information from their friend, and they're like, oh wow, if my friend sent it, it must be true.
Yeah.
But maybe it's an hoax, right? Like so many things we receive on WhatsApp. So that's why it's kind of, you need to have like, when you read something on the internet, you need to have critical thinking.
Yeah.
You need to have a judgment. Okay, what's the source of this information? Should I cross-reference with other opinion or information to make sure it's true? And so each of us need to be able to navigate this, actually, not just as a professional, but as a citizen. But today's discussion is around like the future of work, so let's stay on that. But all the knowledge that you need is here, and so it's about, we, Hulbert, and help the students to develop their self-learning mechanism, and we each one of us learn differently. So it's about each one of us need to find a way that we learn the best. And there is not one way to do it. There is like an infinite way of doing this, and to provide a framework so that students can become their own teacher. And there is a saying that I think is a good representation of this. It says that if you give a starving man a fish, you feed this person for a day. But if you teach this person to fish, you feed this person for a lifetime. Right? So that's the same for education. Exactly. We don't want to give them the answer. We want them to learn how to find the answer.
To learn. And that's very indicative of the entrepreneurial process too, right? You you prototype, you test, you fail until you capture those learnings, and it becomes a viable business. So
Yes.
I want to show love to our amazing community. Elvin is saying Holberton sounds like a great blessing and concept. What are your thoughts on teaching DevOps, agile design thinking, and requirements engineering? Should they be independent or integrated courses?
So great question. Thanks for asking. We actually do teach DevOps, system administration. That is part today of our core foundation curriculum, the first year of Hulbert. I think at the end of the day, to answer the question, it depends. There is no right answer. Should we teach DevOps as part of it, or Agile as part of it or not? It depends of the type of talent you want to train. As of today, Hulbert is really aiming at training the best software engineers of the generation, and that's working because our students work for companies like Amazon, Tesla, Apple, Google, and so on. But the truth is that most companies would need software engineers, and by the way, they are not all tech companies. Software today is everywhere in our world, whether it's entertainment, transportation, healthcare, finance, you name it, right? So all these companies, they may not need someone to have the skills that a Google would need, right? So whether DevOps or Agile should be part of a curriculum is, in some cases, yes, in some other, no. And so it really depends to which type of company you want to train talent for, and also how much the students have time to invest in their education. Some people might be able to study for 2 years, some might not, right? So you need to come up with different type of option that suits everybody.
I love that. That's powerful. So the second half of Elvin's question is, would Swedes, software engineers coming fresh out of college, benefit from learning about these things in school before going into industry?
Yeah, so look, I think colleges are great. For one thing is to bring someone who needs to mature, right? Maybe they're teenager and they need to become adults, and they don't really know what they want to do in life, and they want to explore, right? They want to try to figure out what's interesting for them, and they want to learn about many different topics and get like a general education. And so historically, college and university have been doing an amazing job at this. What happened, and getting back to the beginning of our conversation today, people go to post-secondary education not that much to get a general education, but to get a job, right? And so we are asking university to do something that they are not designed for, right? They are not designed, they haven't been designed to teach a trade, to teach like skills to get a job, right? In some capacity, right? So yeah, I think like a lot of people who come out of CS program, they are smart, they know things, but unfortunately, it's most of the time not suited for what company needs. And I think one great example of this is DevOps. I think there is the only university that does this is in Canada. In North America, and I think it's a club. It's not even part of the curriculum. But when you go to a CS program, you have almost nothing regarding system administration, SRE, DevOps, right?
Wow.
And actually, at Hulbert, those students are among the students who choose to go in this path, in this field, who get the highest salaries and are hired by the best companies because the demand is so high that it's very easy to find a job. So I think DevOps is like a very in-demand skills wherever you are in the world,
Mm.
and there is definitely a lack. So if you can learn these skills somehow, I think it's highly valuable after college.
That's a great question, Elvin, and even better answer, Sylvain. So this
Thank
one's
you.
from Isaac. Do you have any intentions of adding cybersecurity engineering to Hobart School?
Yes, that's definitely in the pipe. Very good question. And indeed, like, we're chatting with at government levels, and they have like thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of unfilled position or position that they know they need to fill in the next few years,
Mm.
and they have no clue how they are going to fill them.
Mm.
The U.S. Army also reached out to us, and like now, like conflict are also happening online, and so there is a huge need for cybersecurity.
Mm.
So that's something that we are going to develop, and it's one of the field where if you can acquire skills in cybersecurity, I can tell you that you are going to have a job right away, and you are not going to be out of a job for a
Yeah,
long
it's
time.
needed more than ever right now.
Yes. Like with the current situation, there are a few fields that I think
Mm.
the rate of employment is not going to go down.
Mm.
I'm sure cybersecurity is one of them. I don't have the numbers, but another field is machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Mm.
An article was recently, a few days ago, published in the Wall Street Journal, where they say that even with the coronavirus situation, they were expecting the need for machine learning engineer to increase by at least 15% this year. So you
Wow.
definitely have like tech workers. I think with what's happening today in the world, the digitalization of our economy and companies is just going to accelerate like nuts. And so
Mm.
if you can acquire digital skills, not
Mm.
necessarily just coding, but digital skills in general, I think that's definitely a great bet to invest in.
I love that. So y'all heard it here first. Build your digital literacy and skills. So let's talk a little bit about the soft skills, the life skills. How important do you think that is for students who are going into the workforce, or even current professionals in the workforce?
Yeah, and I know, Tim, that you're also contributing on this field, and I'm a big fan of your work. And no, I think it's just essential. In soft skill, I think like one thing even before, I think it's life skills.
Mm.
I think life skills is something that unfortunately, and not to say that our generation were better, but I mean I feel that the younger generation are sometimes a little lost on this type of skills. And I think you cannot be a great professional
Mm.
if you are not great in your life, right?
Mm.
So I definitely think that there is a lot of things that maybe before post-secondary education that institutions should really put in place to help people to navigate the world they are living in,
Mm.
and so I think they are just essential. At Hulbert, we also focus on soft skills within the scope of being a great digital worker and a great
Yeah.
software engineer. So obviously that's not the full range of what you need to be like great human being. We really focus on the work part of them,
Mm.
but we believe that they are just essential. And one of the things that we always tell our students is that there is this thing about being a 10x software engineer. I don't know if you've ever heard about that, but there is
Oh,
a
heard of it.
there is debate around. You heard of that? Yeah. Like go on Twitter and type this, you're gonna have a good loss. But some of the threads are kind of nice in a sad way. But anyway, like our theory is that if you do your job well,
Mm.
by yourself, you are a 1x. Okay. But let's say you can empower 10 other people to do their job better.
Mm.
Then you are a 10x, right? Let's say you can empower 100 people to do their job better. You are a 100x.
Mm.
And so our society, our organization, our companies are made, like the successful one are not made of successful individuals, but successful teams,
Hmm.
right? And so if you want to have an impact in our world or have an impact in your companies or whatever you are doing, it's not by doing it alone. You need to inspire others to do it well. And so you need these soft skills, right? You need communication skill. You need um, emotional skills, right? So you need to understand how to navigate all of this. And so that's something that we really develop at Hulbert. We want to make sure that students are not just developers, but that they also have this soft skills so that they can, have a bigger impact than just writing software.
Yeah, and so they become 10x engineers, right?
And then they become 10x
10x.
engineers. Yes.
So, I want to show love to an awesome audience while Sylvain plugs his laptop and keeps it charged. Shout out to Christopher, who said 100% spot on podcast title. Appreciate you, Christopher. Thank you so much. And shout out to Christy, who's viewing right now as well. Shout out to Francesca, who's saying communication skills are incredibly important. I would love for you all who are tuning in right now, please comment, how important has life skills, soft skills been in the work that you're doing as a digital worker or in the company that you work with? And, what are your suggestions on how people can improve their life skills? So with that said, I want us to talk a little bit about this rise in remote online learning, right? Due to COVID-19, Sylvain. One, how do you feel about it? And do you expect there to be a rise in remote online education from now moving forward?
Yeah, so look, there are two things happening in our world. There is a sanitary crisis, which, as you just mentioned, is the COVID-19 situation. And then you have an economic crisis, where obviously going into a recession, more like unemployment rising like nuts, like all over the world.
Yeah.
Number in the US are just devastating. It's just scary. And so I think what's happening in our world today, one is going to stay in history books. It's like really, I don't know if we realize, but that's really a shock to our society. And I think it's going to accelerate history. And, as I previously mentioned, I think it's going to accelerate this digital transformation that our company were already going through. And for some of them, it was quite kind of painful.
Yeah.
And so therefore, it's going to also accelerate the future of work and distributed online workforce. And why I think so is because companies realize that that's something that, either will kill their business or threaten, very aggressively their business, and that they have to have a plan to go fully online if that would to happen again, and it will happen again. They realize that maybe it's not that bad, and you can do it. I also believe that they will realize that perhaps they can save, on not paying for rent. Perhaps they can hire talent that are not in the big cities. So they can get like better talent at a cheaper cost.
Better engineers, right?
Better engineer, cheaper cost, right? And I think for many people, for some people, I think it's also something that they wanted to do since a while for their personal comfort, and that they have now. And if it goes well, they can tell their employer, "Look, like you see, it worked. Like, why not continue?" On the other flip of the coin, I think for many people, including me, I'm not 100%. Like, I'm not like a big fully online, worker. Like, I go nuts. Like, if I cannot see people and I'm alone in my apartment, and I'm not working as efficiently, and so I think there is also a lot of people who like really realize that that's not something for me. And so it might not go well for some companies. Maybe it will be a disaster because they were completely unprepared for that, and they will be even more skeptical about going online. So I don't know, it's going to be interesting. I think it's not going to be the majority, but definitely part of it. And so to go back to your question about, do you think that this is going to bring education more online? I think definitely yes, right? And as we discussed at the beginning of our conversation, as the world of education and work, the both are merging. I think the education world is gonna go more online, but I also believe that it's not going to be full online as the
Mm,
future of work. Yes, I think that we have MOOCs, massive online open courses for like more than a decade. The Coursera, the Udacity of the world, and they have had a huge impact. Like period, right? But they
mhm,
didn't replace college, or they didn't replace
mm.
like physical facilities. For a good reason is that we are social animals. We are human beings that need to interact with other human beings,
Yeah.
and that there is a lot of things that I think cannot be emulated online, at least
Mm.
not in the near future.
And I think it's also to what Holberton does a really great job at is the collaborative and interactive aspects of learning within teams, right? I know you all have a location in San Francisco where people can come and work within their teams on projects that they're working on. And I think that human element is still critical, one in the working world, but also when it comes to education, right? I think, online education can only supplement so much until you need that face-to-face interaction. One, to build empathy, to work together, but also to build those human skills that are important to learning and working.
I agree with you. I think so. That's why I'm definitely online is going to grow, but I think what we are going to see more and more is a mix of the two, which I would call remote.
Mm,
Right? You are attached to a location, you are attached to a community, right? Perhaps it's a city, perhaps it's a state or district or a time zone or something that um, connects you with the other students of your cohort, right? Like something
yeah.
that, hey, we are all together because we are part of this, one thing, whatever it is. And then perhaps most of the thing is going to be happening online, but I think
Mm,
you're still going to have this connection where people can meet physically,
mm,
and so you're going to have both of the best world, where I don't let's say you are living in a small city or in the countryside and you cannot move to a city with a campus. Well, you can still follow the same education from your place, and then
mm.
sometimes you can drive and be with your classmate, right? Once in a while. So I think we are going to be see more and more of this kind of hybrid model emerge, which is kind of the case already for companies in Silicon Valley. That's something that many employees do, is that they
Mm.
come in the office once or twice a week, or maybe sometime once a month, and they just drive or fly in, and that works. So I
Wow.
think this hybrid model are gonna serve both the flexibility and the human needs.
I love it. I love it, Sylvain. So Theodore is saying, I'm also a fan of the hybrid model for work. Work from home is nice, but 2 to 3 months being at home would be a social challenge for sure. Shout out to you, Theodore, for that comment. Barb is talking about this is a very important topic. Thanks, Tim and Sylvain, for talking about this. Barb is one of our top audience members and viewers. Shout out to Barb. I truly love you for always tuning in. Altman is saying, I think the rise in digital remote learning and working has encouraged empathetic thinking. It has also allowed us to care for people in ways we haven't thought of or done before. What are your thoughts on that, Sylvain?
Absolutely, I think there is a lot of learners or workers who are left behind because
Mm,
whatever social or physical or like situation they are in does not allow them to access the same opportunities as
mm,
others. And I think that tech, if harnessed well, can definitely break down these barriers.
mm,
That's definitely something that we've done at Hulbert, where not only we make sure that our education is of high quality, but we also want to make it highly accessible, and technology plays a
mm,
big part of this. A few examples is that our admission process is fully blind and automated. So we are not looking
mm,
at your past. We don't care who you are. We don't care what
mm,
you did in your life, right? We just want to make sure that you are motivated, and that you really want to become a software engineer. And so the software will check this. And so there is no discrimination or human bias. There is no Holbert and staff that are going to
mm.
cherry pick the students, right? Which led to a highly diverse population of students. the way that we provide our exercises and projects, and that the correction of the student work is done is also through software. So
Yeah.
it's also instant, it's also non-biased, and we can bring this same high quality education. Obviously, we have this in San Francisco, but we also have this in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in New Haven, Connecticut, in Colombia, Puerto Rico, in Tunisia, in Beirut, Lebanon, and they get the same education, right?
Wow.
And so I think technology can really empower. That Hulbert is just one among many examples, and I'm sure that we'll see like many more in the near future.
I love that. That's so powerful. So shout out to Theodore, shout out to Barb and Elvin for your amazing comments. And with that said, Sylvain, what are your parting words that you want to leave our Unleashing the Future of Work community with when it comes to them taking charge of their education?
So you mean like what are the things that I would advise them to do?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's coming back to one of the main components of progressive learning is that we should all become lifelong learners.
Mm.
And today there is a lot of resources, and I think it also comes back to the comments. Is it Barb? I think who said like it helps people who are who are left behind to really take advantage of this, and all these different type of offering online or remote, free or very accessible financially. Really now there is no excuses to become a lifelong learner.
True that.
And I think that so many of us now are stuck at home, right? So,
no excuses.
Exactly. So maybe instead of 3 hours of Netflix, you do 2 hours, and then you put 1 hour on your calendar, and you're like, okay, this is to develop my skills or my knowledge. So I think like take a step back. That's what I do sometimes. Like especially on weekend, I'm like I will come up with a to-do list of things I need to get done, and I put it in my calendar so that I'm not like scrolling on Instagram or spending my day not doing much. That's something I would advise all of you is take the time to invest in yourself. Right, investing in yourself now eventually will pay off for sure.
I love that. I love that. So take the time to invest in yourself and become more self-taught, more self-initiating of what you want to learn. And, that's really how you build that competency long-term. So Sylvain, talk to us a little bit about where can people find out more about what you're doing and what the Hulbert School is doing?
Yeah, so you can type Hulbert School in Google and browse our website. Lately, we fully transitioned the Hulbert School experience to a fully online program, so that students, and actually they didn't miss one day of project, so that they can continue their education from the comfort of their home. And obviously, we are looking at improving our offering and doing something online that's more solid. And we are in many communities. We have 3 campuses in the US, 4 in Colombia, actually 4 now in the US, which we are opening one in Puerto Rico, and one in Tunisia and Lebanon. So we are definitely growing and now looking at offering this to more people. So you can check out our website. We're also on Twitter and Instagram.
I love it. I love it. Shout out to Sylvain. Make sure you check out Hulbert School. If you know someone that needs to get into Hulbert School, make sure you reach out to Sylvain on LinkedIn or check out the website. They are fully online now, so it's incredibly accessible no matter where you're located, right? No location bias. With that said, thank you, Sylvain, for being on another episode of the Unleashing the Future of Work podcast. It's truly been a blessing having you on. And I want to give the last word to our lovely top viewer, Barb. She says, as her parting words does, careers demand lifelong learning to stay on top of your game. That is true that. Barb, thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, Sylvain, once again for being on the episode of Unleashing the Future of Work. So if y'all are interested on being another episode, or if you know someone that's interested in sponsoring or being a guest, make sure you check out utfow.com. Check out utfow.com and see you all soon. Peace.